Peace be upon you all. My name is Muhammad Laiq Siddiqui, father of Holophase Part 2, Episode 6. If you've walked with me from the beginning, you already know this is not a normal science show. We are not just throwing facts at you, we are slowly, step by step, changing the way you see reality itself. And today, we cross a new threshold. Up to now, we've been asking, what is real? What is this thing we call energy? What is time, space, and motion really made of? In this episode, we ask something even stranger and more ambitious. If reality had a code, like a language, like DNA, like software, what would that even mean? Before we dare to answer, we need to let that question sink in. So in this part 1, I don't want to jump into equations or symbols. I want to walk with you through things you already know. Words on a page, notes in music, knots in a rug, DNA in a cell. We'll use these as mirrors to feel what a code of existence might be. By the end of this part, I want you to be able to say with your whole body, okay, now I understand what it would mean for there to be a code of existence and why discovering it would be enormous. Later, we'll argue that this code is written in phase and its derivatives, but not yet. First, we need to understand what a code really is. The child with a secret code. Let's start from something small and human. Imagine a child in school. They're bored in class, so they invent a secret code with their friend. Every letter in the alphabet gets replaced by a symbol. A becomes tranga, B becomes hic, C becomes star, and so on. They practice until they can write whole sentences like tranga hic, say har. To everyone else, it looks like random scribbles. To them, it's a hidden message. Meet me after school by the big tree. What happened here? The world didn't change. The classroom didn't change. The tree didn't move. But the way they represented reality changed. With a small dictionary, a mapping between letters and symbols, they created a new code. The important part is this. A code is something that lets you take limited building blocks and create many different meaningful patterns. Once you understand the code, you can encode, turn a thought into symbols, decode, recover the thought from symbols. The symbols aren't the message, they are the language in which the message lives. Now hold that feeling. A small set of elements plus a rule equals endlessly many meaningful combinations. We're going to scale this idea up until it reaches the universe itself. Text, 26 letters, infinite stories. Now imagine you're holding a book. Don't worry about what kind of book. It might be a novel, a law code, a holy scripture, a physics textbook. To your senses, you are just seeing black marks on white paper or pixels on a screen. Take a moment and really feel what's happening. Every character, every idea, every emotion in that book, the pain, the joy, the fear, the love, all of it is built from 26 letters. 26. A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. On their own, letters are just little shapes. They don't mean much. But when you agree on a code, which shapes represent which sounds, and agree on a grammar, which combinations are allowed, then suddenly laws are written, Revolutions are justified. Hearts are broken. Nations are guided. Worlds are imagined. All from 26 letters. If you look at a page in an unfamiliar script, say Chinese, Arabic, or Russian, you see ink patterns, but you don't know the code. To you, it's noise. To someone who knows the code, it's meaning. That's the first key point. Code is what turns pattern into meaning. Without the code, there is just shape and ink. And the second, a tiny alphabet plus a set of rules can generate endless depth. You could spend your entire life reading books, and humans would still keep writing. 26 letters, infinite stories. 3. Music. Finite notes, infinite songs. Now shift from reading to listening. Imagine you're sitting in a concert hall. The orchestra is tuning, and then suddenly the music begins. You hear strings rising, brass entering, percussion pulsing, harmonies building, tension and release. It feels like something alive. But underneath, something very strict is happening. There is a scale, a finite set of notes. There is a rhythm, patterns in time. There are rules, what notes can follow which, how chords resolve, how dissonance resolves into consonance. Different musical traditions have different rules. Western classical music has its own grammar. Indian classical music has ragas and talas. Traditional folk songs have their patterns. Electronic music has loops and drops and textures. But in each case, a finite vocabulary of notes plus a finite set of rules equals infinite possible songs. The sound waves themselves are just vibrations in the air, but the way they are organized follows a code. If you understand the code, you can predict where a melody might go. You can compose your own piece. You can recognize a style or a tradition. If you don't understand the code, it can still feel beautiful, but you're like someone staring at an unknown alphabet. You feel something real, but you can't read it. Again, notice. The world of music, with all its emotion and complexity, emerges from a small set of building blocks and rules of combination. Sound familiar? We now have two examples. Text, 26 letters, all written human culture. Finite notes and rhythms, all human music. Already you can feel a pattern. Rug weaving. One knot, entire worlds on a loom. Now, let's move to something more physical. Imagine stepping into a room with traditional hand-woven rugs on the floor and hanging on the walls. At first, you see colors, borders, flowers, animals, stars, geometric shapes. Maybe you recognize motifs from a certain region or culture. Now, imagine walking closer and someone explains, all of these rugs, every curve, every shape, every flower, are made from one basic act, a knot. On the loom, there are warp threads running vertically, weft threads running horizontally, and the knot that joins colored yarn onto this grid. The weaver has a limited set of colors, a fixed grid of possible knot positions, a traditional vocabulary of patterns, but an enormous freedom in how to combine them. From the outside, you see a hunting scene, a garden, a mandala, a story of a village, a map of symbols. From the weaver's point of view, Each of those scenes is just different arrangements of the same basic act, the same knot in different colors at different positions. You could say the objects in the rug, the flowers, birds, borders, are not fundamental. What's fundamental is the code, the warp and weft grid, the knotting technique, the palette of colors, the rules and traditions of composition. That is the rug weaving code. Once you master it, you can read the rug, see which region, which tribe, which style, even sometimes which story it encodes. Write new rugs, invent new patterns, new stories. One knot, limited colors, simple local rules, a whole world of designs. This will become very important later in our journey because the holophase view is deeply rug-like. One continuous substrate, repeated local rules, endless emergent patterns. Keep that image somewhere in your mind. DNA, 4 letters, all life. Now let's go inside the cell. Imagine a single living cell under a microscope. A bacterium, a neuron, a plant cell. It's a tiny thing, but inside it is a structure that changed our understanding of life. DNA. In DNA we have just 4 bases. A, adenine, T, thymine, C, cytosine, G, guanine. These 4 letters, arranged along a long chain, form sequences like A, T, G, C, C, A, T, G, G, A, C, T. On their own, these letters are just chemicals. But cells contain a molecular decoder that reads triplets of bases, codons, and translates them into amino acids. Chains of amino acids fold into proteins. Proteins build structures, catalyze reactions, regulate processes. From this single code, 4 letters plus rules, you get bacteria, whales, oak trees, human brains, your hands, your eyes, your heart. Everything alive that we know of on Earth is written in one shared genetic code. Even the differences between you and another person, your eye color, your susceptibility to certain diseases, some aspects of your temperament, are, at least in part, variations in this code. Again, a tiny alphabet plus a stable universal decoding rule, an unimaginable variety of forms. DNA is not a metaphor. It is literally a physical code, a sequence, a set of rules, a decoding machinery, a generative power. When biologists discovered this, they didn't just discover another molecule. They discovered that life is written. Code versus map. What's the difference? We've looked at text, music, rugs, DNA. All of them share a pattern, a finite set of building blocks plus rules of combination, rich, structured worlds. Now, we need to make a crucial distinction because it will matter a lot later. The distinction is between a map and a code. 6.1. The map. Imagine a map of a city. It shows streets, buildings, rivers, parks. It tells you where things are. It might even show elevation, traffic patterns, bus routes. It's very useful. But it is still just that, a description of something that already exists. A map does not build the city, does not generate new neighborhoods, does not decide how people will move tomorrow. It's a picture, not a generator. In physics, many of our familiar tools behave like maps. A diagram of planetary orbits is a map. A space-time diagram is a map. A field plotted over space is a map. They are incredibly powerful, but they describe what is there and how it moves. They don't tell you, on their own, why these patterns and not others. 6.2. The code. Now imagine a computer program that simulates a city. Inside the computer, you have variables representing people, roads, cars, money, weather. Rules that say how people move, how traffic behaves, how buildings are built or demolished, how resources flow. From this code, when you hit run, the computer generates a living, changing city. In this case, the program is not just describing a city, it is producing it, step by step. Even more fundamentally, the underlying machine code, the zeros and ones, the instructions, is what the hardware executes. If you change the code, the behavior of the simulated world changes. The difference is, a map tells you what is there. A code tells you what can happen and how, given certain rules. This distinction is central to this episode. Our usual way of doing physics has a strong map flavor. We draw trajectories, we draw fields, we draw space-time diagrams. We also have equations, of course, and those get closer to code. But still, in our mind, we often think there is space-time, there are things in it, and equations describe how they behave. The Holophase move is different. We are asking, is there something that plays the role of machine code for reality itself? Not just for a simulation on a computer, but for the actual universe. Something like an alphabet, a set of local rules, and an execution rule that generates the patterns we observe. What would a code of existence have to be? Let's push the question now. If reality really had a code, what would we expect it to be like? I'm not asking what it is yet, just what kind of thing it would have to be. It must be finite and simple at its core. All our examples share a feature. The alphabet is small, 26 letters, 12 notes, 1 knot, 4 DNA bases. The rules may be complex, but the basic building blocks are simple and finite. So, a code of existence would probably have a small set of elemental symbols, a relatively simple local rule about how they can change and combine. If the alphabet of reality was infinitely big and completely arbitrary, we could never learn it. It must be generative. A true code doesn't just label things, it generates them. DNA doesn't just label organisms, it builds them. A musical score doesn't just label sound, it tells musicians how to produce it. Software doesn't just label images, it creates them on the screen. So a code of existence must be something that, when combined with its rules of evolution, can produce particles, fields, forces, structures, information, even observers like you. It must be able to build the world, not just draw a map of it. It must be local and universal. Look again at DNA. Every cell in your body, with a few exceptions, carries the same code. Each cell reads only the part it needs, locally. Look at a woven rug. At each intersection of warp and weft, the weaver decides the knot and the color, using local rules. The global pattern emerges from many small local decisions. Look at computer code. Each instruction is local. Add this, move that, compare those two. But applied everywhere, Those instructions build a coherent world inside the machine. So a code of existence should operate locally. At each point or event, it tells you what is allowed or how things change there. Yet be universal. The same rules apply everywhere, not one law for London and a different one for Andromeda. 7.4. It must be measurable, at least indirectly. DNA was not just a philosophical idea. We found it in cells, in chromosomes, in sequences we could read and manipulate. A code of existence, if it's real, must also leave traces we can measure. Patterns in experiments, quantities our instruments are already sensitive to, structures that show up again and again. Otherwise, it remains not physics, but poetry. 7.5. It must be falsifiable. A genuine physical code is not only beautiful, it is vulnerable. If you say, this is the code of life, biologists can test it, try to break it, check if there are exceptions. If reality has a code and we claim to know it, we must be able to say, if the universe does this in a given situation, then our supposed code is wrong. That's what makes it science, not mysticism. 8. From books and rugs to the universe. Let's pause and gather our examples. 26 letters plus grammar, all written language. Finite notes plus rhythm plus harmony rules, all music traditions. Rug weaving. One knot plus colors plus grid rules, endless patterns and stories. DNA. 4 bases plus translation rules, all life on Earth. In each case, once you see the code behind the surface, your relationship with the object changes. You don't just see a rug, you see a program executed in wool. You don't just hear a song, you hear the grammar of a musical language. You don't just read a book, you feel the alphabet and syntax underneath. You don't just see an organism, you see DNA expressed in flesh. Now imagine applying this to reality itself. Instead of asking, what particles are there? What forces are there? What fields are there? We turn the question, what is the code that when run gives rise to all of that? This is not about disrespecting existing physics. It's about asking if all of that might be like the images on the screen, while the machine code lies deeper down. That's the big conceptual jump of this episode. A first glimpse, the strange candidate called phase. In the rest of episode 6, we will argue something bold. The code of existence is not written in stuff like particles. It is not written in energy as a fundamental substance. It is not even written in space-time points. It is written in phase and its derivatives. Now, I don't want to explain that yet. For now, I just want you to feel how unusual that claim is. Phase, loosely speaking, is an angle in a cycle, a position in a repeating pattern. We see phase in the angle of a rotating wheel, the position of a wave, the beating of your heart, the oscillation of an electric signal. What we will argue is that at every event in the world, there is an underlying phase value. The way this phase changes in time and space encodes everything we call time, space, motion, fields, forces, information. In other words, reality is written, not in particles flying around in a container called spacetime, but in a continuous rug of phase, weaving and unweaving itself across what we call space and time. That may sound abstract now, But think back. Rugs are woven from knots. Music is shaped by phase relationships between notes. DNA is a sequence of symbols that only make sense when you know the code. Our claim is phase is the universe's alphabet, and its derivatives are the grammar. We will spend the rest of this episode making that statement precise, careful, and testable. Where we are at the end of part 2. Let's summarize what we've really done in this part. We have not proved anything about phase, introduced any equations, talked about derivatives or dynamics. Instead, we have reframed the question from what is the universe made of to what is the code by which the universe writes itself. Felt codes in everyday life through language, alphabet, stories, music, notes, songs, rugs, knots, patterns, DNA, bases, life. 3. Distinguished map from code. Map describes what is there. Code generates what can be there. 4. Outlined what a code of existence would have to be. Finite and simple at its core. Generative. Local and universal. Measurable. Falsifiable. 5. Softly foreshadowed that we will propose phase and its derivatives as this code. If you remember nothing else from part 2, remember this feeling. There might be, underneath all the complexity of reality, a small, elegant code, like an alphabet, like DNA, like a weaving pattern, from which everything else is generated. In the next parts, we will strip the world down to phase alone, understand its essence as deeply as we can, then start to see how its changes, its derivatives, become the first letters of the universe's language. For now, just sit with the question. If reality has a code, what could it possibly be? You already know the shape of the answer. It will be simple, it will be local, it will be generative, it will be something our instruments are already touching, and it will give us a new way to read the world. In the next part, we begin to reveal the candidate. We return to the holophase, phi, and we ask, what kind of stuff must reality be made of if it is to be written at all? That is where we go next.